All right, thank you. Thanks. Good to be here with y'all. My name's Joe Krogan. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Joe.
Man, if you're an alcoholic in Utah, you tried harder than any other place, man. Right? Because they make it harder for you. I got the lowdown on it out here, right? You know, you couldn't drink on Sunday. You can't buy liquor on Sunday, and you have to only drink. You have to order food. Oh my God. But anyway, so my hats are off to you. You tried really hard. You're an achiever. And thank you for inviting me, Neil, and having me out here. It's a lot of fun. I can't wait to get to hear what I'm going to say tonight. Really, it's just, somebody's going to have fun. I hope it's me. And I hope it's you. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. It is unlike anything, downstairs, the meeting before the meeting, right? Everybody talking, only in AA. We have our own language here. You talk to somebody and you go, you wouldn't have this conversation. Our conversation openers you wouldn't have anywhere else but in an AA meeting. People, where are you from? Florida. Oh, I lived in my car in Florida. My second wife stabbed me in Florida. By the way, they have a website called Florida Man. Have you heard? That's me. That's why we moved there. I mean, look it up. It's really it's amazing. But I'm going to try and do what the book says. An alcoholic properly armed with the facts about himself can win the confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. So we're going to be here a while. No, just kidding. Let me tell you, you can't kick us out of a bar or out of a dope house, but God forbid the speaker go over in an AA meeting. Jesus could be talking, and we'll be like, Lord, let's go. Wrap it up. Get to the resurrection. Let's go. All right. You can tell we're going to be real reverent tonight. That's right. Anyway, my sobriety. Thank you. I thanked Neil and Jeremy for picking me up. Jeremy's really going to come in and do the talk because we had it on the way over here. It was an hour ride in, and we had a great time. He's awesome. I don't trust his driving very much. I didn't say anything in the car, but the roads are icy and he's flying and he's talking and he has to look at you while he's talking. We made it, yeah. I just want to make it back, okay? But so I love Alcoholics Anonymous. My sobriety date is September 12th, 1990. I am blessed beyond my ability to be grateful. I get an attitude at gratitude meetings because I wish I could be as grateful as my life is, and I can't. I can't pay back all the wonderful things that have happened to me. And if you're new, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. We say a lot of crap in here, a lot of crap. One of the things we say, that they say, don't leave till the miracle happens. If you're sitting in this room, the miracle has happened. Don't leave. You're just the last one to know it. That's why you have a sponsor. He's going to tell you when these miracles start happening. My sponsor used to tell me, he said, you wouldn't know a miracle if it hit you in the name of the Father. And I wouldn't. But I don't remember a hell of a lot about September 12th, 1990. That's my first day sober. I remember a lot about September 11th, 1990. It was a bad day. Maybe the day before you got here was a bad day, huh? Probably was. Anyway, my home group is Life's a Beach. I'm from Palm Coast, Florida. Man, you're more than welcome. It's a great home group. There's probably 120 of us meet every Sunday night. And then we have a men's meeting. My men's meeting is also about 100 guys meets on Thursday night. 70% of them are under a year. It's really a phenomenal meeting. And we have, they have newcomer kits, right? What we give out. Do you do that here? Give them like an address of where and when and phone numbers. And our newcomer kit, because most of them, we have a lot of sober living houses, and I've heard some people are here from there too. And welcome, man. Those are amazing places. One day you will look on treatment centers and those sober living houses with reverence, because I came from one of those. And we have a newcomer kit that we give to our guys, and they all look the same when they come in. They're new. They all have a flat brim cap, vape gun, and energy drink, a phone with plenty of fish and Tinder already downloaded, right? And an unused big book. All right? And so I'm not, just kidding. The guy with the flat brim, don't rush the stage, okay? Jeez. We're so sensitive. And so anyway, I didn't know what alcoholism looked like. I had no idea what alcoholic looked like. I'll tell you how I drank. I'm going to do a quick drunk-a-log because there was so much that happened to me in sobriety. I've done everything possibly you can do wrong in sobriety except drink and leave. But this is how I drank. And you know, the book, there's some people that are professionals. I sponsor a lot of them. I sponsor some doctors and some lawyers and professional people. And those are people that, they're different types of alcoholics than I am. The book talks about the different types. They're people that had enough, you know, discipline and they got a career and a job and families and, you know, and then alcoholism ambushed them. And it caught up with them because you can't outrun this thing. And then it talks about them in the book. It says they're normal in every respect except for their drinking. That's not me. I'm the psychopath the book talks about. Always making many resolutions, never a decision. I loved it from the very start. The first time alcohol crossed my lips or any other, and I'm lucky, a lot of other substances. Being from Florida, we do a lot of substances. Okay. Now, I am an alcoholic, as described in the big book, as an alcoholic of the hopeless variety. I believe in our singleness of purpose. But alcoholism for me was a gateway drug. And we did a lot of substances. So if there's any old timers in here, I don't want to offend you. If you've never done any drugs, too bad it's too late. You had your shot. I tried to get my sponsor to try a little crack. Just as so he'd have a frame of reference, right? I said, Frank, you want to see what the phenomenon of craving looks like on steroids? So I guess there's some other people in here that know what that's like. But I didn't want to see Frank on carpet safari for about 4 hours, right? That would have been terrible. So anyway, here's how I drank. I don't stop, I run out. How do you do it? That's what I do. I take right from the start, man, I loved it. The problem was I always overshot the mark. Did anybody here ever drink more than they set out to do? It always happened, and I couldn't figure it out. I'd be in the middle of a sentence, and all of a sudden I'd throw up. Right? And tonight I'm not going to throw up. No matter what happens, I am not going to throw up. I'm going to stop before I get there. I mean, and I never could. Then I found out there's medication you can take. It's called cocaine. I never threw up again. The problem was, though, I drank to alcohol poisoning. Right? Now, 4 days of drinking, and the organs start shutting down. But anyway, and I don't drink at lunch because I love it. When I drink, that's what I'm doing, is I'm drinking. This is it. I had about 4 jobs in a row one month. I took a job as a, why are you laughing? I know you do that. Listen, I was downstairs talking to you people. You can't fool me. I asked the guy, I said, how long are you sober? He goes, well, I go, whoa, that's not a trick question. Did you ever notice newcomers? Everything's a trick question. If you ask them, where do you work? Well, where do you live? Well, I'm staying over. And everything needs an explanation with us. So anyway, I had about 4 jobs in 1 month. I was bartending, right? Because that's where the girls are and that's where the booze is. and I got fired in rapid succession, couldn't figure out why. There's a part in our book that says, there's a point in our drinking that we could have stopped, but we don't want to. See, I never wanted to stop. I thought you had to want to stop drinking to stop drinking. I found out the hard way that's not true. But what happened was I'd go to work, have a couple shots behind the bar, and then the rest of the night the boss would be yelling at me to keep telling me, get back behind the bar. You're supposed to be working. Because when I drink, that's what I do. And I rearranged my life to accommodate my drinking. I said, okay, I'm not going to drink till 15 minutes before closing. And I was able to keep the last job for a little while. But of course, if you're an alcoholic of my type, it will gain on you. I don't drink at lunch because if I drink at lunch, I'm not going back to work. Who needs that stupid job anyway? Right? They're all idiots. I don't drink at dinner because if I'm going out drinking tonight, I'm fasting. I'm not eating. I got to be light on my feet. You never know what's going to happen. And so that's pretty much how I drank. And I don't, there's two phases to our drinking, part A and part B. We all had part A, the fun years. That's why we're here. We try and recreate those fun years, man. That was why I did it. I was that guy that was crippled with self-consciousness, social anxiety. I mean, walking into a room of strangers was like walking into enemy territory. And I didn't know what the problem was, but all I know, and in our book it talks about, if on page 30 it says that if you be an alcoholic, or on page 44 it says, if you're suffering from this disease, you may be suffering from an illness that only, singular, a spiritual experience will conquer. And I couldn't figure that out. Why? First of all, and why is it a difficult choice? The book talks about it being a difficult choice. The reason it's a difficult choice is because, first of all, I don't know what a spiritual experience looks like. And secondly, I'm not sure I want one. Because what I think it looks like is no fun, no sex, shuffleboard, and bingo forever. I'm not interested. So we're in this dilemma. Do I stop or do I continue on? And how much proof did I need? I mean, how much proof did you need? That you had an issue. I mean, I can't tell you over and over and over again how it had to be proved to myself. So anyway, I had all the fun years. That was great. And then all of a sudden one day it's not fun. But I don't know it's not fun. I still think I'm going to recreate that fun. I remember at about 30 years old living in Miami and ran into a bunch of guys that I went to college with. I didn't go to college. I enrolled in college. Let's get this straight, right? That's all. I never showed up for one class. And about halfway through the semester, I would wake up and go, it's too late now. I don't even know where the classes are, so I'm not going. But I ran into a bunch of guys that I had enrolled in college with. They all had jobs and families and cars and homes. And I'm living in an apartment with 4 guys, and the only furniture we have is one of those big wooden spools from a construction site, right? And a empty pizza box in the fridge that says, touch this, you die, and there's only a piece of crust in there anyway. So I think I'm going to turn my life around. I'm going to straighten out. I was always turning my life around. But I have never been, I got here 5 days before my 40th birthday is my sobriety date. I had never been to an AA meeting, never been to a detox, never been to a treatment center. I had no idea what alcoholism looks like. And if you're new, you may not know what alcoholism looks like. You may think you know. I thought I knew, but I really didn't. I had no idea. I had no idea back when I lost those jobs that the phenomenon of craving would kick in and that I wouldn't go back to work after I'd having a drink at lunch. I had no idea what that was. See, and I just think, or I'm setting out to, and I always drank more than I set out to do. Tonight I'm only going to have 2. And the next thing you know, I'm strolling out of the after hours club, right? At 6 in the morning. And I have no idea why I'm doing all this. And I think I just changed. I have 2 drinks, and I think I changed my mind. You know what? What the hell? I'm going to stay till 11. I'll still get a good night's sleep. Don't worry about a thing. 11 o'clock rolls around. What the hell? I might as well stay to 1. 4 hours sleep is plenty for me. I've done it a million times. I'll do it. And then next thing you know, we're walking out of the bar at 1 o'clock. I'm going to go to the after hours. Everybody's going there. Yeah, I'll go there. I get out at 5. I'll shower, go to work. I've Hell, I don't need any sleep. I've done it 1,000,000 times. And then the next thing you know is you're on your way to work and the sun's coming up. Remember that? Fun time. Ooh. God, was that. You got the cobwebs that you can't get off, right? And you go into work and you're starting to feel terrible. And I don't know what this is, but I'm feeling bad. Let me just stop at the 7-Eleven. Get me a couple of tall boys. I'm going to guzzle them because I'm not drinking for taste. I'm drinking for effect. And I guzzle those beers, and the phenomenon of craving kicks in again, and I think I changed my mind. I go, who needs that stupid job anyway, man? I'm going to go down to the Bamboo Lounge. Opens at 8. They got the parking lot in the back. It's my kind of place. And I'm off to the races again. One more time. And I don't know any of these things that you guys talk about in here that are, this phenomenon of craving. And I think that's the issue. So I'm always trying to stop. Now, if when I drink, I can't stop is the issue. What's the solution? The logical solution is just don't start, right? Just don't drink. Has anybody in here ever tried that solution? Yeah. And here's emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to do it again. This is repeated over and over again. Into the doors of insanity, not up to, into the doors of insanity or death. That's what I do, and I can't see it. I can't connect the dots in my alcoholism. I think, and here's how I've been treating my alcoholism, now I'm talking about the problem years. Phase B, not phase A. Phase B is when I started to have those emerging thoughts. Maybe you know what this feels like. Anybody remember cracking your eyelids open after a binge? Bill says, the remorse, horror, and hopelessness of the morning after are unforgettable. That's why I'm here. I'm not here because of the alcohol or drugs. I got to get this. Hold on a minute. No. Just kidding. Somebody's at nice ring doorbell. It's probably my wife's boyfriend. And anyway, so I am how I treated my alcoholism in those last years. What's the logical solution? Why I'm just not going to drink. Just don't drink, right? And I can't figure out that I can't not drink. I can't figure it out. Over and over, I crack my eyelids open. Let me fast forward, because there was a lot of... I'm going to fast forward to the last couple of months of my drinking. On September, let me tell you where I was. I was in a Skid Row motel room in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, with my 2-year-old son and his mom. And if Child Welfare Services would have walked in the door, I'd have been arrested and I'd be in jail today. And I didn't set out to be that kind of dad. And this is what you would have saw. You would have saw unbelievable filth and squalor, and that the only thing I owned was a crib. I had nothing else. And that little boy was in that crib, the most beautiful little boy you've ever seen, and huge blonde curls and big eyes, and he was in filthy diapers, and he had a bottle that used to have milk in it, but it was just cloudy water. And that's what I ended up at. And I was there, and I didn't set out to be that dad. I was there in the hospital 2 years earlier when that little boy was born. And I remember when I found out my girlfriend was pregnant, I said, okay, this is a good thing. I'm going to be a dad. Maybe this will straighten me out. Maybe it's time to grow up. I'm going to go get a real job. And I did. And I got a little credit, and I bought a little house. And I had a nice car, and I was there at the hospital the day that little boy was born. I remember picking that little boy up in my arms, and those of you that have kids know what this is like. I fell in love for the first time in my life. It was like somebody flicked a switch. And I looked at that little boy in that nursery, and I held him and started to cry. And I made him all the promises probably every parent makes their child. You're going to know you're loved We're going to have so much fun together. I'm going to teach you to play baseball, basketball, football. We're going to have the best life. We're going to be able to tell each other we love each other. Walk down the street, put our arms around each other. And I meant it. But I don't know what alcoholism looks like. And I put that little boy down in the crib in the nursery, and I walked into the waiting room. And a friend of mine said, let's go have a drink to celebrate the birth of your son. 8 days later, I showed up. No human power could relieve our alcoholism, is what the book says. Strongest love in the world. If you don't believe me, do the test. If you're sitting in this room, you might not have done the test, but you've lived it. Has anybody here ever had any relationship problems because of alcohol or drugs? That didn't stop us. Get rid of it. It's like that dog food commercial when the person makes fun of the food in the fridge. And the guy, I didn't like him. The dog didn't like him anyway, you know. Anybody here have any financial problems because of alcohol or drugs? That didn't stop us. How about legal? How about health? Make your own list. I made my list. No human, not the strongest love in the world, that little boy that I loved and worshiped, could keep me sober. And let me tell you something, you can only break promises to yourself so many times, and the light goes out inside. And the light went out inside. And that's how, because I wondered how I could end up being that dad in that motel room, because the light was off. And I still don't know what alcoholism looks like. I don't know what until September 11th, 1990, I didn't know. See, I had been treating my alcoholism like I was a non-alcoholic. Maybe you've done this. Here's what that looks like. I'd crack my eyelids open in that motel room, or even for a few months earlier, but because we were in that motel room for a couple months. I'd crack my eyelids open and I'd go, damn, I'm not dead. Remember that? Now, I wasn't suicidal, but I didn't want to wake up in my life anymore. It was Groundhog Day. Oh, man, another day, just like the other one. And then the guilt, shame, and remorse would be on me, and it was unbearable. And I would do what I call the alcoholic dance, and I'd get up and I'd walk over to that crib in that motel room. I'd look at my little boy in filthy diapers and water, and I'd start to cry. And then I'd tell him, that's it, I'm done. I'm going to get us out of this motel. I swear to God. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to get us out of here. I'm going to buy some diapers and some milk, and we're going to have a real life. I'm going to be a dad. And I'd mean it from the bottom of my heart. Swear to God with everything that's in me. And then within a few hours, I was drinking again. And most of the time I'd start because I forgot I quit. That casually. The book says suddenly the thought occurred. Why not? Have a drink. You know, Fred, the guy, we were talking about Fred in the car, Jeremy and I love Fred's story. He says, end of a perfect day, not a cloud on the horizon. He walked into the hotel and he thought, wouldn't it be good to have an 8-ball before bed? I mean, a highball. So, on September 11th, let me tell you, and I take meetings in the treatment centers and detoxes all the time, and let me pretend I care what time it is. I have an early flight, so, and I tell these guys, you know, they always hear in there, what's different this time? I don't know if that's a real good question to ask anybody, but I will tell you, as I look back, what's different, what happened to me on September 11th. Because something did happen. I call it my reverse spiritual experience. I didn't know about AA. I didn't know about anything, so I'd never tried, any kind of recovery at all. Wouldn't have known where to find you. But that morning, I cracked my eyelids open like I'd done so many times before. Guilt, oh damn it, it's all gone. The booze is gone, the drugs are gone, the money's gone. One more time, it's all gone. Shh, I did it again. Then I'd stroll over to the crib, and I remember looking at my little boy and saying, that's it, I'm going to get us out of this motel. And there was a voice in my head, just like my voice, as clear as it is tonight, and it said, no, you're not. And for the first time, I couldn't buy the lie. See, I treated my alcoholism the way a non-alcoholic would treat it. That's it. I'm going to get a job, pay the bills, be a dad, go to work. Well, if I could have done that stuff, I would have done it. I couldn't. I was powerless. I had lost my choice over whether I would drink or not. And I couldn't see it until that day. And I knew for a fact. I looked at that little boy and I knew, no, I'm not. I'm going to drink no matter what. No matter what. It's kind of, and I knew this was the end. And I didn't know in Bill's story, he does the same thing. He didn't surrender to get sober. I didn't surrender to get sober. That's not my story. It may be yours. I didn't come here and go, whew, that's enough. Now I'll try that stupid AA thing. That's not my story. On September 11th, 1990, what happened was I stood there and I knew I was going to drink again, and I made up my mind. That's it. I'm done. I'm going to quit quitting. Alcohol and drugs are not my problem. I knew what the problem was. Sobering up. Not enough alcohol and drugs. And I knew I was going to die of the disease. Bill talks about it on page 7 in the book. He says, so this is the curtain, the end it seemed. How dark it is before the dawn. Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. So I was to join the endless procession of sots that had gone on before me. Alcohol was my master. That's exactly the way I felt that day. I didn't know that, but I felt that day, and it was kind of a relief. It was kind of like falling off a skyscraper, and on the way down you go, so this is the way it ends. I knew I was a drunk and a drug addict, and I knew this is how I'm going to die, that I wasn't going to stop. And now I made up my mind, I'm going to do whatever it takes to stay drunk and high until the end. And it wasn't far away. I had sores all over my body. I had a staph infection that was killing me, and I had my teeth falling out of my head. My idea of a good meal was a beer. You know, it had a couple of the food groups in it, you know. And so I was malnourished. And now that's where my best thinking got me. See, because I don't know what alcoholism looks like. But that day, I knew what the problem was. The problem was I can't drink and I can't not drink. And that's where my best thinking, my sponsor once told me, he said, haven't you tried the best you can your whole life to be successful and happy? And I said, yeah, I have. He goes, well, you suck at it. And if you're in AA, I got news for you. If you see a guy riding a bike smoking a cigarette, he's not doing it for a workout. Okay? If you're sitting in here, you know, we can pretend, if somebody asks me, go, are you the speaker? I go, no, I wore a tie. I want to impress people at AA. It's like trying to be the tallest of the 7 dwarfs, right? So that's where my best effort took me, to that motel room. And on September 11th, 1990, I'm going to tell you where God took me. And when I talk about God, it doesn't have to be a religious concept. I love the way Bill leads us into God, because we don't care. Even Frank used to tell me, he says, I don't care what you pray and what you say. What's important is that you pray. You don't have to believe in God, but you got to start acting like a person would act if he believed in God. See, faith without works is dead. Faith itself is insufficient, our book says. For faith to be vital, necessary to life, it must be accompanied by self-sacrifice and constructive action, right? Unselfish, constructive action. So it's not about what you believe, and we get so trapped in, see, I thought what I believed and what I feel is the most important thing in the world. It's what's killing me. All my problems are rooted in my image of who I think I am, and I can't let go of it. And that night, there was a knock on the motel room door. Now, at this stage of your drinking, some of you know, you don't open the damn door, right? There's tape on the peephole, so no light can escape. I mean, it's true. Now, that night, I walked over and I opened the door without even looking. And I wondered after I got sober why I did that, because I thought about that. And I realized why I did it. Because the decision I made, I had nothing left to hide anymore. I knew what I was. I didn't have to pretend to be a non-alcoholic like I'd been doing for the last 10 years. I gave up pretending to be a non-alcoholic. And I walked over and I opened that door. And I believe God walked in. Now, he was short, fat, and bald that night. He looked a lot like my younger brother. But he did a lot what we did, and I believe that this was divided. You know, Bill uses a lot of references towards the swamp and the morass, which is a swamp, and he says, and quicksand, and he says, what seemed at first a flimsy reed proved to be the loving hand of God. Maybe you know what the flimsy reed was in your life. But this is, and I've had many of them, but this is one of those flimsy reeds. And my brother walked in and he didn't lecture me. He didn't say, look what you're doing to your son. Look at this. But I could see the horror in his eyes. And until you can see yourself through someone else's eyes, you can't really see yourself. And I believe he said the only words that would have got my attention. He tugged on the last moral fiber that was still attached. He said, he put his phone number down. He said, if you want, I will watch your son while you get help. Now, I didn't want help. But I knew what I was going to do, and I didn't want my son to be part of it anymore. I didn't want him to go down with me. And on September 12th, I came to, and I made that phone call. Had no desire to get sober. And now, I didn't know about AA, but I'd heard of treatment. I didn't know what treatment was. I know you go in for, I'd heard some things. There's a couple old rock musicians that went to treatment, and they're playing music again. And I thought, okay, I don't know what they do there. They give you a pill or a suppository or something, right? But I'll go, you know, what the hell. And it'll get them off my back and they'll take my son. And so, and I'm looking for the Betty Ford Center, right? I want the Olympic pool, the weight room. Give me 30 days. I'll get a little sun, work out. I'll be back on the street. And they don't take people like me. We found an old apartment building in the hood that the United Way had converted into a treatment center, and it was called Concept House. And I went there, and they interviewed me, and they had a bed for me, and it was a 6-month program. Now, I had no intention of staying 6 months, but I told them just to get in the door, and till the heat was off me, and then I'll leave, right? And I remember my first night, September 17th, 1990, was my 40th birthday. And I'm in a treatment center for indigents. 50 people in that room. I hated myself so much I would have traded my life for anybody's life in that treatment center that night. Today I would not trade my life for anybody's. I hope you get to that point and have that experience in here, because it's available. It's all available. If you're new, you're sitting next to the treasure. It's here. But I remember that first night we're sitting outside, and I'm trying to be the cool guy in the treatment center, right? And we're smoking. We were real men. We didn't vape. And we're smoking, and I'm trying to impress these young guys. What I was the old guy in the treatment center, right? And I'm trying to impress the young guys in there. I go, you know, I used to own a bar on South Beach, Joey's on the Ocean, which I did. And I said, you know, they used to call me Miami Joe. Nobody called me Miami Joe. I called me Miami. You know how lame you are to give yourself a nickname? And so this guy pulls up. It's Friday night in Miami, and a guy pulls up. He had a Nissan Altima or Sentra or something. It was a brand new car, and he gets out of the car. He's got creased pants, collared shirt, and he's a young guy. I got to know him after he's 27 years old, and he gets out on a Friday night, and I'm thinking, I'm 40. I'm sitting, and I'm thinking, I wonder what they pay this guy. I bet I could do this gig. By the way, that first 30 days in treatment, they made me wear a sign. I am not a counselor. I'm that dummy. When I go to a gym now, right? When I get up from the weight machine, I got to take the pin and move it down so it looks like I did more weight than I did. Even if nobody's waiting to get in, you know, just in case the next guy goes, wow, that guy was really pumping some iron. And so he's in there, and I don't recognize what he's doing. He brought an AA meeting in. And he said some things I didn't agree with. He said, you never have to take another drink or drug again if you didn't want to. that's not the way it is. I was drinking against my will. I had lost the power of choice, like the book said. So I knew that was crap. But he said something else that night, got my attention. He said, you never have to feel the way you feel tonight again. I hated myself that night so much. And then he said, I graduated from this treatment center 2 years earlier. I went, wow. Because I'd never known anybody that got sober. I didn't know what it looked like. And he said, if you stay the entire 6 months, your life will never be the same. And there were 50 people in that treatment center that night. And he was right. And he says, oh, unfortunately, I got to tell you, he said, there won't be 5 of you left. And he was right. There were 2 of us at the end of 6 months. Now, I don't know why I was one. I believe it was a first step experience. I believe that my first step experience, because I love the first step. And I think you have to stay current with the first step. Because that first step is the rocket fuel. We won't do what it takes. This is not the Elks Club, right? This is not something you join. It's a way of life. And it took me so much pain to learn that. I've always had a problem with commitment, right? God, who would know? And but, you know, I got out of that treatment center. I went where every good 40-year-old alcoholic goes. Mom, I'm home. Now, my folks had a little place they bought in a retirement mobile home community in Central Florida. It's not really Florida. It's like South Georgia. And you got to be 1,000 years old to even live in the county, right? And I was telling Jeremy, if Florida was going to get an enema, it's where they'd insert the tube. Right? And I'm living in this 55-plus retirement community in Central Florida. And but you know what? Most of us are here because of the kindness of strangers. You know, sometimes my best advice is this: don't forget the God factor. When we're full of problems, when we're up to our eyeballs in problems, I told the guy that today. I said, don't forget the God factor. Frank used to tell me when I'd come to him with Frank, the IRS seized my bank account. I hadn't paid income tax in 20 years. And he goes, oh my God, this is great. You're in for a huge spiritual growth spurt. I'm not sure I want that. Oh, I got these felonies, Frank. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I don't want to go to jail. He goes, I'm sure God doesn't want you in jail unless there's someone there you can help. I don't care about that idiot in jail. And but don't forget the God factor. That's what we got here. The kindness of strangers saved my life. I'm sitting there, and this treatment center was not a proponent of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I had no intention of going to AA. I'm sitting there smoking my Marlboro on March 21st, 1991, 6 months after I went into that treatment center, and on the front porch of my mom's place, and there's an old man watering his lawn next door. And this old man, I could see him kind of sliding over to me, and I'm oh man. And he said, hey, he goes, hi, I'm Frank. I go, hi, Frank. He goes, I said, I'm Joe. He said, I hear you had a problem with alcohol. Mom's been talking, huh? And he said, would you like to go to an AA meeting tonight? And I thought about it. I go, well, stay home and watch Murder, She Wrote with Mom, or because I didn't have a car. I had nothing. Or go to an AA meeting. And all right, I'll go to the meeting, Frank. He goes, and I'm going to describe something that I didn't recognize, and I see it all the time. He says, I'll pick you up at 6:45. 6:45, that little old guy. And he had nothing I wanted. If you're new here, don't look for a sponsor. I owed money to everybody. I hadn't paid the IRS. I had these felonies against me. I thought if you're going to get a sponsor, you better be a banker or a lawyer. This guy was a retired mailman, he had nothing I wanted. Married to the same woman for 50 years. Oh, Jesus. Raised 5 kids and drove a Buick and living in a mobile home community. He had nothing I wanted. I want to shoplift AA and get back to South Beach where I belong. And but at 6:45, he was outside. The little car was idling. He never beeped the horn. He never banged on the door. And he just waited patiently. You know what that's called? Unconditional love. And that night, he took me to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we went to a meeting. There were 50 people in this meeting. You couldn't put together a whole set of teeth. If you want what we have, I don't want a damn thing you have. I'm sitting there thinking, I wouldn't even drink with these people. And I'm going, they're so lucky I'm desperate, or I wouldn't be. I didn't know that's how it works. Nobody comes here on a winning streak. Oh, I think I'll go to AA. It's been on my bucket list. You know, I hear they have great people there. And Frank taught me the program of Alcoholics Anonymous on the front seat of that car. He was my sponsor for 31 years. The last few years he didn't. He had Alzheimer's, and the relationship changed. I would be visiting him in the nursing home and taking care of him. But you know what? I owe my life to that man. And he was great. He set me free in so many ways. He told me step 1 and step 2 in a language I could understand. And he taught me what alcoholism looked like. Here's what he goes, here's step 1 for a real smart South Beach guy like you. Step 1, you're screwed. I go, well, and? No, there's no and. Step 1 is a diagnosis. You have a fatal illness. It's fatal and progressive, which means you're going to die from it, but it's going to get really bad before you die. And I said, well, Jesus, that's terrible. And he goes, if you're not 100% sure you'll drink again, you will drink again. Because that's what we have, alcoholism. We've lost the power of choice in drink. We can't drink, we can't not drink. Can't picture life with it or without it. Read it. It's over and over. If you're one of us, you'll understand it. And I said, well, that's terrible, Frank. That's bad news. It sounds like, if that's the case, if I'm going to drink again, it sounds like it's going to take a friggin' miracle. He said, you're right. That's step 2. And it is. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And that was our only shot. And I said, well, I don't know if I'm really kind of on that kind of basis with God or whatever you want to call him. He said, so you don't need to believe in God, but you better hope for one. And if you've done step 1, that's what hopeless is. You better hope. If you're on the way down from that skyscraper and you're falling, you better hope there's a God. We were talking, Albert Einstein said the greatest decision you'll ever make in your life is whether this is a friendly universe or a hostile universe. Because whatever you decide, your life will be filled with evidence to prove you're right. And that's the other thing Frank said. And then step 3, he says, you don't have to believe in God. We're just going to start living like a man would live if he believed in a God. This is all about actions. That's all it is. Manual labor. If you're new, that's it. Just do the manual labor. I go to detox. I take meetings into a treatment center and a detox, and one of the new guys goes, man, don't you hate going there? Because the book says an alcoholic in his cups is an unlovely creature. Yes, we are. We're liars, cheats, thieves. But we get to love the unlovable, just like Frank did. And I go there, and I finally said something to the guy, and I don't know, it just popped out of my mouth. I don't know why I said it or where it came from. I said, I don't go to the detox because I love it. I love it because I go there. If you do this long, and if you do the manual labor, you will love this program because you'll love the life it's given you. You can't stay ahead of the curve. You can't be grateful enough to pay back all the things that this life. Where does a guy like me get to stand up in Provo, Utah, in front of a bunch of people, and you're actually paying attention? Jesus, you're really sick. Right? I mean, think about our qualifications. And then we're the first ones to get self-righteous, right? We had that happen the other night. A guy shut a guy down at a meeting, hey, that's over, the meeting's over. And the guy was going on, and he was a new guy, and new guys don't know if they're on foot or horseback, but I was that guy, man. I wish I had my first 1-year talk. My God. They put it in the Smithsonian. And so he shut the guy down. The guy got mad and stormed out. And I told him, I said, what's our name? Alcoholics Anonymous. I said, if he was a drunk, we'd let him go on for a while. We wouldn't shut them down. This is where we come. This is where the sick and infirmed come. And he said, well, I'm not going to put up with that bullshit. And I said, well, you know, we try not to get so self-righteous. Boy, that upset him. Now he stormed out. So now we had two guys storm out of the meeting. But I couldn't get here on my own. If I could have read the book and got sober and had a spiritual experience on my own, I would have. I went through the steps with Frank as best I could. But it's amazing when you stop committing felonies and show up for work on a daily basis, your life gets better. I started getting promoted at work and things started happening. And eventually what happens is, see, once you get sober, success is way more dangerous than failure. Boy, when you can start providing your own happiness, that's a dangerous place to be. When you stop looking at the right side of the menu, when you stop knowing, well, you know, you start getting her back and the job back, and you get these accolades back, you know, and you start resting on your laurels like the book says. And I started worshiping the gifts instead of the giver. And I met a girl in AA. She was wonderful. She had 2 kids. I had custody of my son. So his mom never did get sober, and she's been in and out of prison. And she's in my prayers every day. But some people don't make it. I don't know why. So it's a sad case. My son has seen her twice. And he's 35 years old. He's only seen her twice for 2 weekends in those entire 35, since he was 3 years old. So she had 2 kids. I had my son. We get married. Big AA wedding. It's wonderful, right? All our friends are there. I get offered a job because I'm doing so good. And I get offered a job that I'm not qualified for, but I interview well. You know, we always say the right thing. We lie, right? We know what to say. Just pretend you're trying to get an 8-ball on the arm. The words, they come out, right? Trying to get the guy to run a bar tab for you. And so what happened was it's a big job down in South Florida, and I'm going to uproot this family and take them back down to South Florida, which is not a good idea. Everybody was, you crazy? Don't do this. But this is my big opportunity. These are the promises coming true in my life. And I thought they were. And so I take this job and I'm working, you know, it's a big job. I'm getting paid more money I ever dreamt about making. I'm 5 years sober. I mean, if they would have known where I came from, they wouldn't let me on their property. Okay? And now I'm driving a big car. I'm wearing fancy suits to work every day. I got hundreds of people working underneath me. I'm working 12, 14 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week. By the way, when you're working that much, you're not qualified. Okay? It shouldn't be that hard. And I'm coming home and I'm exhausted. And we bought a big house. I'm putting a cardboard cutout of a husband up because I'm too tired to be one. And I'm putting a cardboard cutout of a dad up because I'm too tired. And what happened was after a year of marriage, my wife, and she's going to AA, I'm not. I'm hit and miss. And after a year of marriage, she said, that's it. If this is being married to you, I want a divorce. At 6 years sober, she divorced me. And I own a business today, and I always say, if you're surprised when you get fired, you deserve to be fired. I was surprised. I was like, what? How can you do this to me? I had no idea. And the last thing she said to me as I was leaving the house, by the way, if you're the one leaving the house, it's not your house. Okay. And I was the one leaving the house with my son in tow, and she said, can't you see all your relationships end the same? See, I'd done a 4th step, but I didn't do a causes and conditions. I did a conditions. And if you fix the conditions and don't fix the causes or get to the causes, the conditions drove back again. And they all came back. At 5.5 years, 6 years sober, they had all come back. I was lying. I was hiding money. I was deceitful. I was going places I shouldn't be going, that a married man shouldn't be going to. And I was doing all this stuff. You know, I just want to get close to the fire. I don't want to burn myself, but I just want to get close, you know. And next thing you know, I'm so angry and so outraged that they end up firing me from this job. Now I'm 6 years sober. The best job I ever had in my life I get fired from. My wife has divorced me, and I'm broke and destitute. And I can't go back to it because the job demands a lot of hours. I can't go back to that job. And I'm not an educated guy. I'm not a professional man. It's the only thing I knew how to do. I was a car salesman. That's what I did. I was running a big car dealership. I had gotten promoted, but I'm just a car salesman. And I know it's hard to figure, right? And I remember going by a bar one night, and it caught my attention. I was in so much pain and so hurt because she got custody of AA. I couldn't go back to AA. Everybody knew what a sweetheart she was. She is a sweetheart. I mean, and I could, oh, there's that dirtbag, you know. So I would go to a meeting here or there that nobody knew me once in a while, and that was my program of recovery. And I'm driving home from a meeting one night, and I see a bar, and the name caught my attention. It said Bar. Must be like Utah, right? And it said Bar, and its parking lot was in the back, and it opened at 8 in the morning. And I said, I could be Miami Joe in there for a while. But it's hard to drink when you got 6 years sober. And if you've done a real first step, you know, if I pick up a drink, my lifestyle's going to change. I'm under no illusion that I will be drinking out of stemmed glassware at the piano bar. I might have glass stemware, but it won't be at the piano bar. And finally, on day 7 of circling that bar, I'm so angry at God, I cursed him, left my little boy asleep in that room. I drove across town to this bar. And I'm a traffic light. I'm stopped at the light. It's a block away. I can see the bar. And I got these butterflies in my stomach because I'm going to drink tonight. I don't care anymore. I'm drinking. I cannot take it. I can't sleep. I can't eat. And while I'm at that light and it's dark out, and I left my little boy asleep. And if I drink, I may not make it home. Just like when he was born. And I look over here on the side of the road, and there's a broken down van with its hood up. And I could see the front license plate underneath the street light. And it said, "Have you prayed today?" And I said the serenity prayer. I don't know why. I don't know where it came from. And I ended up driving back across town. I didn't go in that bar. It was like a sober blackout. I ended up going back across town to a meeting I'd been to one time a year earlier. And I walked in the meeting. There were 150 people at this meeting. It was in West Palm. And I was in the back of the room, and there was a guy up on the stage, and he says, "Tonight's anniversary night. We're celebrating anniversaries. Is there anyone here who has an anniversary in the month of September?" And I raised my hand like an idiot. Everybody clapped. They didn't know 20 minutes before that I'm sitting in front of a bar going to drink. And he says, "We have about 5 or 6 celebrants. What we do is they all come up and share for about 5-10 minutes how they stayed sober. Since we have a visitor, why don't you start us off?" Oh, yeah, real funny. I got up there, and I came up to the front, and I stood up, just like I'm up here tonight, and I looked out. And I stood there for what seemed like forever, and I couldn't talk. And I started to cry. And then I started to sob. And I couldn't make a sound. And finally, it seemed like God knows how long, I finally said, "I need help. I'm lost. I don't know how to do this thing." And I just stood there crying. Finally, 2 guys rushed me off the stage. They took me back in the kitchen. They sat with me till 11:30 that night. They didn't want to leave me alone. The kindness of strangers. That's who we are in here. Now, I know why they rushed me off the stage. The treatment center brought the van. The whole front row was all new people. I could hear them go, "That's not how it is at 6 years sober." He's just humble. And they picked me up at 7:30 the next morning. They made me drive around with them in a golf cart while they played golf, and I had to hang with them. And I went to 3 meetings that day with them, and it was like the old joke, "We're going to show you one more time," and they got me back involved into the center of the program. And this time I knew I burned my life to the ground sober. I couldn't blame it on the alcohol or the drugs. I didn't, because before that I had my married life, my romantic life, my finance life, my work life, and my AA life. And they were all separate. And I thought they should be. but they're not for me. A guy like me, there is no separation of church and state. Okay? They're all under one thing. And I went through the steps again, and I started sponsoring guys again. I've taken meetings in the treatment centers and prisons for, God knows, 30 years now. And things started to change in my life. And I remember the guy told me I couldn't go back to my old job because I had my son. And he said, why don't you do this? You know, and I was 47 years old. And I knew I wasn't going to be discovered, that Hollywood wasn't looking for me, that I was never going to be the president of GM. And I finally surrendered to be an ordinary guy. You know, it's easy to be an ordinary guy when you don't have any other choice. To quote that great American philosopher, what's Frazier's first name? The boxer, Joe. He said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And I had gotten punched in the mouth. And what happened was, I talked to my sponsor. He says, why don't you do this? Why don't you go get a crummy job? Just go get a job where you can take your son to school in the morning and pick him up from school at night, and you can learn how to be a dad. And then what I did, and during the course, and that's what I did. I took my son to school in the morning, picked him up from school at night. We made dinner every night. It was stir fry. It's all I knew how to make, either chicken or beef. And we had a little rented place, and it had no furniture in the living room. We played touch football. That year I coached him in Little League, and baseball, and basketball, and football. We won the city championship. My son will tell you it was the best year of his life. And I did what the program says, that maybe we can take the spirit that we have in these rooms and take it into our work life. And I tried practicing it because I took that crummy job. And I went to work and I started to practice this program. And I found out that success is not a destination. It's how you do what you're doing right now. It's not down the road somewhere. And I started to take this attitude and be of service to work. And the craziest thing in the world happened. I fell in love with that crummy job. And I've never had to work a day in my life since. And that crummy job is still what I do. I don't do it actively every day now. I was telling Jeremy, I'm like Colonel Sanders. My picture's on the building, but I'm not frying chicken. But my kids run the business now. My wife and I didn't see each other, but we threw ourselves into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, my ex-wife. And we didn't throw ourselves into a relationship to get over a relationship. Because I knew what she had said to me on the way out the door, that can't you see all your relationships end the same? I had done a fourth step in a causes and conditions, and I could see the root of my selfishness, self-centeredness, and I knew that things were going to have to be different. I was basing my relationships on old ideas. I thought 50-50 was a good standard, right? It seems like a good standard in a relationship. Well, it's not for an alcoholic. It's like justifiable anger. It's not for an alcoholic of my type. See, because if it's 50-50, you know what? I'm doing the counting. I'm keeping score, and I'm going to let you know when your 50's in. And I'm going to also let you know when it's shy. And that doesn't work. For me, it's got to be 100%, and I don't care what you put in. And it doesn't matter. And we ran into each other at an AA conference about a year and a half after we divorced. And we started dating. And we knew we were going to have to, like the book says, be on a different basis. And on the 11th step, it says we invite our spouse into our morning meditation. And when we got back together, we started praying together in the morning. And we've been doing that now for 26 years. You think that, I don't know if the prayer had anything to do with it, truthfully, but what the hell? And then God saw fit to give the worst parent in the world another opportunity. At 48 years old, we had twin boys. And those boys know they're loved. Could you want anything more for your child? They know they're loved. They love their parents. They love being with us. My son just came to hang out. Him and his wife came. The two twins just got married this fall. Both the twins, they're 25. One graduated from the University of Miami, and both of them run the business now that I once owned. And We have the greatest life in the world together. We love each other. This is wonderful. I get to come here. You know what? You treat me like I know what I'm talking about. But my real life, my real joy is back at home. Monday morning, I get up 11:30. I'm in that detox every morning, 11:30. I got my car loaded with guys I sponsor. They're coming and they're going to do service work whether they like it or not. And a lot of them are staying sober because of it, not because of me. And my home group, I'm an active member of my home group. I told somebody tonight, the most spiritual job in AA, not chairing the meeting. All the newcomers want to chair the meeting, right? It's making the damn coffee. Every meeting's better because there's coffee at it, and nobody knows who made it. It's the anonymous job. It's the spirit that we're founded on. I'm the coffee maker at my home group 2 months out of the year, right? So this is one of those things. I can't tell you how Alcoholics Anonymous, my wife sponsors a ton of women. She's 25 years sober now. And I will say this, that the son that was in that crib is in his 8th treatment center. He's outside of Boston. He's 35 years old. I love him with all my heart, and that's all I can do. But I love you with all my heart, and I hope that Alcoholics Anonymous never changes because I can't help him. You can. I hope he runs into you. There was a story, and I'll end with this. There was a woman who lived up in the Himalayas, and she was considered a prophet or a sage. And she lived up there, and she lived away from everybody up in the side of a mountain, and she lived in a little cabin, and she would bake bread and go sit by the stream every day and meditate and pray and just lived a simple life. And one day the spring thaw came, and it washed down a rock, that a real precious stone had washed down right in front of where she sat. And she knew what it was. And she sat there, she picked it out of the water, and she put it in her basket with her bread, continued to do what she'd always done. And that day, down from the mountain came a pilgrim, a guy who was on some sort of spiritual quest, who was dirty and hungry, and he was dejected, and he was on his way back down to the village, and he smelled the bread, and he said, "I'm hungry, I haven't eaten, could I have some bread?" And she opened the basket, and she gave him some bread. He saw the stone in there. He said, "Could I have that stone?" And without thinking, she gave him the stone. And he went down to the village. And the next day she got up, did what she'd always done. She baked some bread, went and sat by the stream and prayed and meditated and did what she'd always done. But up from the village came this guy with the stone in his hand. And he came up to her and he said, "I found out what I really want. I want you to have this stone back, because what I really want is what's inside of you that allowed you to give me this stone." And that's what I found in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. You gave me that stone. Thank you.